ISTPs are still the best type. So when you watch this video, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this guy is not Nick Strengths and Power and every other ISTP that looks just like this ISTP.
Oh my God.
This guy is Austin Alexander, and I randomly found him recently. I think I've seen him before, and then, finally came back around. And he's, double feminine.
Yes!
I know. There's possibly a masculine guy who's
now annoyed by this.
Not as happy. But a double feminine ISTP, and a lot of times they do come in a large, buff, handsome edition. This guy would be including that.
Right, and so is Nick. Nick's Strength and Power is also that way.
Yeah. He's getting rather big. Like their bodies seem to respond well to muscle building. John Cena is the giantest ISTP version I've seen.
Right.
Anyway, so good guys, but as ISTPs, obviously they're going to be struggling with the demon FE, right?
Right. People issues, very much
so.
So
What's so great about a lot of these ISTPs, not every ISTP, right? So just if the ISTP is the greatest type, doesn't mean you're the greatest type. You might be a fucking jerk, might be still in asshole mode. But you have the potential, because a lot of these ISTPs, what they seem to do, what we see, because we get a lot of these guys coming through our video typing service. This is probably one of the most popular types that we get in our video typing service is the male double feminine ISTP consume place.
Yeah, the doc is filling.
Yeah. I have a brother that this is this exact type. So what they seem to do is by the age of 25 is that they do seem to kind of get their life figured out. They're successful in the military. They're successful in business. They're successful in investing. A lot of them will do like insurance or contracting or whatever. My brother's a fireman. He got, in on that early. He's like a fireman captain.
Right.
So he rises up in the ranks, pretty fucking fast on whatever it is they set themselves to do. But then pretty quick, because they have gone through their saviors pretty fast, that pretty early, usually in their late 20s, they're like, okay, so I have the house, I have 2.5 kids, I've got money, I got my job, I'm the best at what I do, but why am I so unhappy? And a lot of them turn into drinking and stuff like this. This would be an example of because we have so many of these guys typed, the ISTP archetypal story is becoming more clear in the data.
Yeah.
And this is kind of an example of what we're looking to do of all the types eventually is like your type, when we get 100 of them, has a story.
Yeah.
Especially if you divide it down to all of the male ISTPs, now the female ISTPs, different story. And we don't have a lot of them as well, so I don't really know what the story is. Same age, same demographic, 100 of those, 100 Nick Strengths and Powers and Austin's, now you start to get a really consistent story, right?
Yeah.
So they then seem to kind of go on this journey of they crash, of course, right? So they drink, they're depressed, they get really dark, and a lot of them deal with suicide and stuff like that because they get really low.
Yes.
But then they will get to a spot to where they're so low and they still have that drive of like, I need to go on. I'm still young. I got more to do. And they'll discover their NF, and they don't. Yeah. They don't fight it kicking and screaming like we see a lot of other types do.
They don't. They still have a hard time doing it, but once they acknowledge it, they're like, okay, so it's just a game of putting more TI pressure on myself to get good at this thing called empathy. And
right.
They just put it inside of their TI box and they get moving.
Exactly that. We see that consistently. I know for us it's true as well. It's like once your savers can see that, wait, there's a need for the demons, then you're moving. Like if you're savers, it's like a heart transplant where your body's like enemy and attacks it.
Yeah.
If your savers see your demons as an enemy, as soon as you go to use your demons, your savers like stop and they'll attack it. But if your savers are helping with the demons, so that's what these guys seem to do, right? So let me play some clips. His context is going to be the same old ISTP story. If you listen to ISTPs, it's the same old fucking shit. It's going to be he came back from the military and he's feeling very lost. He had his blast structure.
I saw that. Yeah, that's a big one.
It's going to be your biggest demons are your fourth function, obviously, but then also your last animal.
Right.
So his last animal is like, oh shit, I lost my structure. Who am I? What am I doing?
Right.
Another thing he talks about is the FE comparing. Well, my friends say they have it bad, but I have it worse. So I have a hard time. How do I listen to two bad stories at a time? I'd have to use FE for that, right? So let's get into it.
Today marks 12 months that I've officially been out of the Navy for a year, and I never expected the transition to be like this, and it's been a while since I've got a chance to sit down and just chat with y'all. I'm going to be real in this video, and it's not intended to be a feel sorry for me type of video or self-pity type of video. I want all of y'all to be able to come to my channel and be inspired to become better every single day. 2013, I joined the Navy, and throughout my 7 years in, I was constantly having my schedule laid out for me. Be here at a certain time, be there at a certain time. This is what to wear, this is what to do, this is what to bring. We're breaking for lunch at 1300. And living this structure, even though at the same time I was building discipline and the ability to schedule, when I got out in November in 2020, it just completely went away. I started spiraling into this really bad routine of waking up and not knowing where to be or who I was. I struggled a lot with self-image and self-identity, and I kind of just didn't know who I was anymore. I felt like I was once a part of this great team, you know, the U.S. military, and then when I got out, I wasn't anymore, and it threw me in the dumps for a while.
So that's the IP story, right? It's talking about people. So when we're videotyping, people are like, what's your story?
Right.
Is this handsome guy talking about things? And so I went to the military. This is my brother, my other brother. So I went in the military, and then they're fucking with my 401k and my recruitment fees, and they want me to get the vaccine and all this crazy shit.
Right, so fast.
So this guy's not freaking out about that kind of shit. Like, who am I and my team and my buddies? This is all identity stuff. It's also gonna feel very EJ like, you know?
Yes.
Well,
because all IPs and all EJs do the swing.
Yeah.
So the IPs, when they lose their identity, it is the scariest, most traumatizing thing ever, because that is their savior.
Right.
And they will lose their identity if they've been working to climb a mountain. Here's what happens to every IP. They work to climb a mountain for a certain period of time. When they get to the top of that mountain, they're like, well, I did it. I did that thing.
Right.
And then it's over. It's like, oh shit, how long have I been spending on this IP story of mine, and now I have to start over? Who am I?
Very much so. So much so, we'll be talking about this more, and as we're kind of like officially defining coins and stuff now, it's like we're kind of merging deciders. So IP and EJs, we're kind of merging them as just deciders. So we're not, because for example, with video typing and stuff, you'll get the IPs coming in, and they're like, I've lost my identity. You're like, oh, there's an EJ. Like, hold on. It is a decider issue. We're all seeing that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they'll come in at the upside down of the swing, and so the IP is going to sound like a fucking EJ. And say the same thing with the EPs and the IJs. Like all of a sudden the EPs are way controlling. What the fuck happened?
Right.
So we're kind of like decider issues. We'll break down, is this DI or DE? We can figure that out later. But this is a decider story.
Right.
I gained a bit of weight, and I just fell into this depressing, kind of just lost phase where I didn't know where to be. I didn't know what to do. I felt incomplete. I felt like I just wasn't Austin anymore. On top of the no drive, the no motivation, I really had trouble with feeling empathy for people and being empathetic towards people like I once was. My girlfriend Sarah is a nurse, and she would come home from her 12-hour shifts and just seek maybe some attention or just someone to talk to, someone to talk about her stress with. And, you know, back last year and earlier this year, I didn't want to hear it. I wasn't that person for her like I should have been. And my transition out of the military made me constantly compare my situation or situations that I've been through in the military to others. And I just really didn't want to hear anyone else's stories or their stresses or anything like that, because I was going through my own.
Right. Let me go, because I can totally back him up on that.
Yeah.
I can totally back him up on that. I get it. I really get it, because as myself as a lead introvert, as DI, having an extroverted function last, and then also having DE last, I totally get it. Like, not obviously not to that extreme, you know, whatever, but like I get that. So for the IP, it's like this is the priority number one is what I'm going through, and it's not that he doesn't care. It's that the wiring of the ability to care, it's just these fuzzy little broken wires, right? So it's not that if I have a car problem and then my neighbor has a car problem and I have a house problem and I have a mortgage problem and I have a tax problem. It's like, it's not that I don't care about those. It's just that my ability to manage lots of different sensory problems all at once, I just don't have the wires for that. Right. And so it's like, if you have save or DE, FE or TE, you're like, you have the wiring package of like, I can care about you, and keep jumping the thing.
You have the opposite problem.
Yeah.
So if you are the EJ, the problem is for you to have an identity story, it's like, hey, I'm having an identity problem. Like, it's like a whisper. You're like not allowed to talk about self because you don't have enough energy for the self, because you are obligated to listen to somebody's bullshit.
Right.
I have to listen to somebody's bullshit. That's what I'm supposed to do, because equal Pharisees, that kind of thing.
You know, in the military, I was so adjusted to this mission first type mindset that everything was mission first to me. All personal matters kind of went out the window. I wasn't caring towards others. I wasn't caring about their personal issues, because like I said, in the military, it's always mission first and personal issues second. Even though getting out, you know, there really was no mission on a day-to-day basis. It was just hard for me to grasp that concept that there was no mission first. It made me very cold emotionally to a lot of people, and it was bad. And I still deal with this today. In the civilian world, the world that I'm in now, your personal life is the priority. And then work comes second for the most part. And working with a video team now and a group of editors, it's hard for me to identify when personal issues and personal matters need to be tended to over what we're working on or what we're going through.
So notice how he's saying mission first, and that came from the military. What we see consistently is if you have lead TI, you are going to have some kind of mission, and that will be your TI.
And then you'll blame it on, the military may be like that.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And then maybe that was his mission since he could, as early as he could remember. I don't know when he decided to be in the military, but that's why we see that the military is so, it pulls all the ISTPs, because it's like, oh, you're going to be the best of the best. Every IP ever wants to do that. And it's going to be the hardest job ever. Thinker. T.
Yeah, right.
I want to have to figure this out. I want to put that kind of intense
And then
pressure on
SE,
myself.
the SE challenge of the physical experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's go. The physical universe is where I will dominate. And then my whole life is about the next mission, the next mission, the next mission. And I just go and I perform. And that's why they're so good at it. You know?
Then having a hard time with the T and the F, prioritizing. When do I prioritize the feeling of the tribe? I understand that. You're trying to get something done and you're working with a team of people and somebody starts crying. You're like, do I just tell you, shut the fuck up, get the mission done?
Right.
Or do I come put my arm around you?
Right.
Now everybody wants their arm around me. Do you? Like, that's a hard thing
How
to
do you
juggle.
balance that? And that's what's interesting about the military is they are not good at the prioritizing.
Yeah,
They're not good at the emotional game because that's not what we're here for. We're here to go, attack, accomplish the mission.
Third thing I really struggle with is constantly comparing what happened to me in the military to what's happening now. Like, I lost 2 of my really good friends in the Navy. 2 of my best friends, actually. And now when I'm exposed to someone having a hard time, or if a friend or family member, 6 months ago, if a friend or family member called me and they said, I'm going through a really tough time, I would constantly think about Kyle and Torrance and compare their situation to the situation that my friend tells me about or a family member tells me about. And it was just hard for me to get out of that silo of that military mindset of your personal issues don't matter. And now, to bring a little bit less depressing mood into this video, I do understand it now. But 6 months ago or later, from November to like June, July, I was a mess. It was hard for me to understand the way things worked on the outside. It was hard for me to be an effective leader and a communicator, and it was just sometimes hard for me to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the story we hear all day long from these types. Like having a hard time understanding the emotions, and it's like understanding the ability to do that. Because again, if you're working backwards from whatever your fourth function is, right? Everyone's like, that's as easy. Like, this is the hardest fucking thing in the world for me to do.
Yeah.
So if you're an ISTP, what's so weird is like we all look at the ISTPs, you're like, man, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this, and the ISTPs are kicking your ass on fucking everything.
Yeah.
And so you just assume, like, obviously you can just manage like negative emotions with several people at a time, right?
Right.
I mean, anybody can do that. They're like, nope, kryptonite, that's the one that I have the hardest fucking time with.
Right.
When that's the one that definitely does get them, and that's where they will hit a brick wall in life when like you're going to sign up for the military or fire department or whatever, and like all you're looking at is all this ST. So if I do this, then I do this and this, and then divorce, and my friend died, and alcohol, and like where was that in the ST?
Right.
You didn't see that coming, right? And then so they're like, well, I didn't sense or see that coming, so what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then it takes them a long time to understand that, and that the understanding is personal with the NI,
Right.
and then the FE. But this is a classic story of like the guy then ended up kind of figuring it out,
Right.
And you see him like, okay, it took me a while to understand it, and I do.
But I eventually did.
It took me a while to build up the strength to care about others, even when I feel like shit. But I'm doing. I'm sure if you're his video editor, you're like, that guy's kind of a fucking dick. He's still.
Of course.
Right. He's
Right, like,
probably not
yes.
the best in the world at it.
Yeah.
But he's probably not going to burn down about it anymore.
And the reality is all of us are on that journey. And of course, this might literally be the very beginning of his journey. And he still might go through just absolute fuck-offery. But it's like, if you at least step your foot into the game,
Right.
You're playing the game. Of course, it's going to take you
the
a
universe,
year to even...
Yeah, the panic backs off.
Right, that's all it is.
I think a lot of the people around me noticed it, but they just didn't know how to address it. I mean, Sarah, my beautiful girlfriend of 4 years, she would make comments all the time, and she noticed it. When I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, when I would just stay there, when I ignore her, when she would say,
She has DE.
get off of the video game or get off of your phone. And now I take a lot of pride. A year later, I take a lot of pride in waking up early, getting out of the bed as soon as I can, going over, having my water, taking the dogs for the walk.
Did it seem like I was unmotivated or just kind of lost?
Consumer
You just
report.
didn't really it was so hard for you to go to the gym. You just had no motivation to even eat healthy.
DE.
And I felt like you were just stuck in your head a lot. I mean, now you're waking up early to go to the
in your head
gym,
a
really
lot.
hard. And I know that's not easy. Whereas before, you would never have done that.
This is what we talk about all the time with the human needs. So you get this DI consume guy that's
Yeah.
like, hi, girl that can come into my video. Tell them about me.
Right. It's a consume story.
We're hearing about him and all the random things about him. And then what role does she play? If she was the consume, she'd jump in there and she'd be like, oh, here's what I have been going through and my random information that I have been going through to deal with your bullshit. And that's
Right.
what she would play that role. She jumps in the conversation and she is directional at him. So
Right.
a lot of times that happens. If you have a DI and a DE, one just is like a black hole and it sucks all of it sucks the whole conversation into that black hole. It's like, guess what we're talking about? You again.
Right, right.
You know?
And even notice how his slight wording, he's like, even she noticed it. As if it's weird that one person would notice that another person is having a bad time.
He probably has no idea
I
that
know.
she's DE.
Right. So like the ISTPs, they really are having a hard time noticing. If you're having a hard time, they're having a hard time
Seeing that you would even notice that they're having a
So
hard
if you
time.
see, they're like, whoa, that was magic. You saw that. She's like, you were fucking laying in bed depressed for a year and a half, Dick.
Everyone can see that.
Yeah. And I love, like, you were trapped in your head a lot. Like,
She's seeing the
TI description, trapped in your head a lot.
Right, right.
But anyways, just sharing another ISTP. This for the year 2022, the ISTPs are still the best type. This guy's like, fucking beat that, right?
Oh my God.